No way, is that Miss Harper?
She's acting like she's on a runway, not in a classroom.
Not every lesson is in the syllabus, and some teachers are lessons themselves. The first bell at Harrison High School rang, but the hallways weren't full of the usual chaos yet. Students shuffled in, backpacks dragging, phones out, earbuds dangling, half listening to each other as they made their way to class. That's when she arrived. Miss Harper. She didn't walk. She glided. Hair perfectly styled in waves that caught the sunlight just right, makeup flawless as if sculpted by the gods themselves, nails flashing neon pink that screamed confidence louder than her high heels clicking down the corridor. Students froze. Ethan, a lanky junior with a hoodie 3 sizes too big, blinked twice. "Who even is she?" he whispered. Maya, flipping her hair like she owned the world, leaned toward him. "She's fashion on legs," she said. Miss Harper entered room 12 like it was a runway, the fluorescent lights highlighting her every curve, every carefully chosen accessory. She didn't even glance at the students for a full minute. She whipped out her phone, snapped a few selfies, and then adjusted her blazer in the mirror by the window. When she finally spoke, it was with a voice smooth, confident, and dripping charisma. "Morning, class," she said, eyes glinting. Students blinked, trying to decide if they should be impressed, terrified, or just laugh. She winked at her reflection. By the time she sat down, feet elegantly crossed, chair squeaking slightly under her weight, the students realized this wasn't going to be a normal day. Are we doing math today?" Ethan asked, eyebrows raised so high they nearly disappeared into his hairline. Ms. Harper cooed, peering over her oversized glasses. "Oh, honey, math?" "Sure, but first you must understand the aesthetics of learning. You can't have algebra without attitude." The class groaned in unison. Maya whispered to Liam, "Is she serious?" Liam muttered, "Yes, and fabulous." By the third day, things began to get strange. Ms. Harper was still obsessed with selfies, her outfits, and how perfectly she could pose in every corner of the classroom, but subtle things started to happen. The chalk she held during a lesson on probability began to move on its own, tracing patterns on the board with a precision that seemed impossible. Students exchanged terrified glances. "Did the chalk just write itself?" Ethan whispered. Maya's eyes widened. "Maybe it's enchanted?" Miss Harper didn't notice. She was too busy twirling in her chair to see anything that wasn't glitter or gloss. Over the next few days, the students noticed even stranger things. The mirror behind her desk seemed to flicker, shimmer, like it had depth beyond the glass. Her phone, left unattended while she preened, captured shadows moving behind her image that weren't there. Books sometimes shifted on their own, but whenever a student tried to warn her, she waved them off with a dramatic flourish. "Chill, darlings. This classroom is all about energy. You just need to vibe with it," Ethan groaned. "If only she knew what's already vibing with her," he muttered. It was during a particularly quiet Thursday afternoon that the full extent of the weirdness revealed itself. Miss Harper strutted to the board in heels that clicked like tiny hammers on the tile, hair bouncing perfectly. She stopped, caught her reflection in the mirror, and for just a second, the reflection smiled differently than she did. Students froze. Maya whispered, "That wasn't right." The reflection twitched, moved independently. It mimicked her poses, but sometimes exaggerated them, doing things she hadn't done. For the first time, students felt real fear. The following week, the shadow became bolder. Every time she twirled, it twirled too. Every pose she struck for a selfie, the shadow did too, but slightly sharper, slightly wrong, as if testing its boundaries. The students realized with creeping horror that she was losing control. Ethan leaned over to Maya. "It's like she made herself a copy that's smarter than her." Maya laughed nervously. "It's kind of funny?" Liam shook his head. "Until it starts controlling the room." It did. On Friday morning, Miss Harper arrived in a brand new outfit, heels higher than ever, lips glossed to perfection. She began to lecture about social media algorithms, completely unaware of the shadow behind her. The mirror cracked, just one jagged line splitting her reflection, and then the shadow stepped out, perfectly mimicking Miss Harper, but sharper, eerier, almost alive. It moved with purpose, glancing at students like it had secrets they weren't ready to understand. Panic erupted. Miss Harper screamed, clutching her phone. "What? What's happening?" The shadow smiled, mimicking her voice in a low, distorted tone. The students scrambled under desks, hearts hammering. Papers flew across the room on their own. Chalk danced wildly on the board. The shadow flicked its hair, adjusted a perfectly glossy lip, and then whispered, "You wanted attention. Now you're on display." The irony wasn't lost on the students. The teacher who spent every waking second admiring herself was now being admired in the wrong way. Her vanity had opened the door to something that wasn't human, something that fed on attention, obsession, and pride. By the end of the period, the classroom was chaos. The shadow controlled the room. Miss Harper was trapped within the mirror, screaming for help. Students cautiously peeked from under their desks, realizing they might be the only ones who could escape unscathed. They gathered courage and whispered to each other, "Some lessons come too late, and some teachers are lessons themselves." When the last bell rang, the students filed out silently. No one spoke. The empty classroom stood in eerie silence, broken only by the faint tapping of heels echoing from the mirror. Miss Harper's shadow still strutting, still perfect, still terrifying. And as they left, Ethan whispered, almost to himself, "If only they knew what she teaches in class." The story lingered in the minds of the students, impossible to shake. They realized that Miss Harper's lessons were not about algebra, not about social studies, not about social media trends. They were about obsession, vanity, and the danger of losing yourself to yourself. WhisperTales, where shadows tell stories you can't forget. Every tale lingers, some longer than you think.